I want to share with you my logbook experience from teaching a high school woodworking course. So, when I started off teaching back in the 2006 2007 school year, I was having students log their materials just like you see on the screen here, where they would physically write in with a pencil the date, the material taken, the size, and calculate the board feet and so forth, which made a lot of work for me because I would have to go in and check this. I would have to make sure their measurements added up right. I'd have to make sure that they had paid enough to um, to meet or to pay their bill when they were done. And so it was a lot of work. I wanted to really find a different way electronically that I could do this. And I'm going to show you how I went about this, but you're welcome to take it for what it's worth and kind of work and design your own. So I'm going to close this, and mine is literally in an Excel document. So, and it's a little bit different setup than just a plain old Excel document. I'm going to click on this. And if this is the first time you're opening it on your computer in Office or in your Excel program, you may be prompted with some things like right up here, security warning, some active content has been disabled. And there's some macros that run in the background of this. So right now you can see all kinds of tabs on here. So the first time you open this, you may want to click enable. Okay, and that's going to make it look like, yes, it's a trusted source. I created the file. So this is what it looks like when you first open it up. And you go ahead and click on this password input here. And I'm going to enter it like I would a student. So you can see it from a student view. So I'm going to put student, I think it's lowercase. And one for this example. And you hit OK, and it will tell you your password's been received. And if you watch at the bottom, you'll see that another tab has opened up. So now when the students sign in, there's a second tab for them, and this would be their logbook. And you can see here, there's some materials already put in. And since I was strictly teaching woodworking, this is set up mainly for cabinet making type stuff. So we've got sheet goods, solid lumber, other supplies, and payments. So as the students were to take materials, let's say it's a piece of sheet good, they would put the date in there, whatever you want to put for a date, whatever project it was. So maybe it was, it just helps log their information. So, right, if they're building second projects or third projects, they kind of have that information. Let's put a chair. And other project part, now you see when this gray box appears here that there's a drop-down menu for the students to choose from. So if we click on this, they now have a list of things that I've pre-put in there that are common parts that we might have as they're building. So, and I tell the student, well, you're going to take a piece of wood, but maybe you're making a lot of things. Mark what you're going to cut out of there first. So if you're like, I'm out of material, I need to make some legs for a chair, then go ahead and put feet or legs or whatever you have it in as. Although that material might get used for other things later, that's fine, not a big deal. Material, so we're working in the sheet goods. It's only going to show me my plywood stuff here. So whatever that material is that you're working with or they're working with, and where they found it, this is more just for my peace of mind to know if they're trading amongst friends, if they found it on a floor, if it was left on a saw, whatever it may be. So normally it's the wood rack when they take a brand new piece. And I typically deal with wood and material is in halves. So they can take a half a sheet or a whole sheet. They can take a half a board or a whole board. I don't really like to get into those small boards and having little cutoffs that are kind of just floating around the shop. So they put that, and then they put their size. So let's say they're taking a half of a sheet, and you can see here up in the red, all sizes must be in inches with no symbol. So I'm just going to put 48 and tab over to the next one and put 48, tab. And it calculates how many square inches that is, and that's just more for the background for pricing it out. And it tells me the size, it's a half a sheet, and the cost for that sheet based on the price I've put in the back end is $32.50. Same thing works with the solid lumber. So if we scroll down, and the reason I have these as two separate groups is because the materials list is a little different. So if you had maybe a general tech ed class that was metals and woods and all kinds of things, 3D printing, and you had to put all those in one, then maybe redesign this and have just one category or one box where they're selecting what material it is and it's pulling. But I had a lot of different types of solid and plywood, and I wanted to make it a little easier. So again, we can put in here 7.2. This is going to be the chair. Whoops. And this piece is going to be for, I don't know, doesn't really matter, for the top. And this time we're going to use solid wood. And you can see I've got a list of here. I just put pallet wood and the wood rack, where I found this. Maybe I found it in the trash. And the size, pallet wood might be 4-inch planks that are, they're probably 4 foot, so 48 inches by 4 inches, and it calculates. Now, it didn't calculate anything here because I have my pallet wood in as 0 because it was free material. But if I change that, you can see that it calculates that. There's some stuff that goes on to the side over here, and that's where it's pulling from lists. And if you see over here, this is pulling from a different list. And so it's looking at everything in these cells if it equals certain things. And that's more on the back end as you're building this to pull these numbers in here. One thing I really like about this logbook is in real time, it is telling the students how much they have to spend or how much they spent or how much they owe. And so they can really kind of see things as they put it in. What they owe. So that's the solid lumber section. Let's take a look at other supplies. This has a variety of different topics as well built in here. And I can choose from these topics that I have here on the drop-down menu, whatever it may be. Maybe it's hardware, and then I can choose what type of hardware it is, and how many. So these are sets of 4. I have 2 sets of 4 that I'm having on this project, and it calculates that. When it comes down to the amount paid, this is a spot that I would typically be the one who enters this in, and if there is macros running, and because I open this, I have to save it and reopen it for the first time before they'll kick in. But normally a student can't put a number in here and without a password. So because I have a password put in, it's allowing me to enter this. So if I put 7.1, the student paid $10. It was a check. If it's a check number, I usually put the check number just as a reference. And let's say it was a cabinet making to just a payment. Okay. And you can see it's taking it off there. Now, we built with a lot of oak. So at the bottom of this, I have that figuring my oak, like you've used this many board feet of oak and this much plywood of oak. That was something I did at the beginning. I really don't use that, but it is kind of there to kind of see total what the students have used and where it's going to. So that's kind of what it looks like from the student side using this material. And this is locked down so that they can't change a lot of this stuff. So let me close this and reopen it and show you. So if I save this, when I hit the red X, it's going to ask if I want to save it usually, and then it will close. So then I open it back up. And I don't have to enable the macros this time because I did that last time. So now I'm going to put that student's information back in. So that very first time you open this on your computer, that's when it's going to ask you if you want to enable those features. So it was student. Let's put 2 this time and put TWO capital for the password is what I have. It's been verified. Now I'm here. So one thing I have about this logbook is that these are now locked cells, right? So the student can't come in later and say, well, I put the wrong material. I want to change this. Because what I found is that a student would enter material, they would come back later and be like, oh, I owe, let's see, I owe, I paid all this money and I still owe more money. I need to change that. So they would delete some of these things, and then I would come in and it was blank. So I had it locked down so that it won't change. Now, I didn't come up with this logbook system on my own. I had some help from a forum online. I don't know if the forum still exists, but it was called Mr. Excel. It was a forum. I'd post questions. How do I make a logbook that locks? How do I have user passwords on a logbook? And a lot of willing people would help me to facilitate some of that information to create this. And then the formatting, what I wanted sheet goods and what I wanted solid lumber, that's all popped in. But that's all kind of my own doing. But as far as the other stuff goes, or where I had these cells lock, and it's only certain cells. So the student can change the date, but they can't change the type of material or the sizes, right? Because that's going to make some changes. So if they fat fingered something and now they want to change it, they have to come to me. I have to put my password in, and it's a pretty simple process. You just come up here to, I think it's review and unprotect sheet, and I put my password in. And now I can change that for the student. Now, sometimes it's going to be open until I close out. So the student might be able to come back and make changes anywhere, depending on how Excel is set up. So that's kind of the student version and how that kind of works, some of the nuances there. Let me show you from the teacher perspective. Now, right now, I could close this and sign in as somebody else, or I can simply go back to the dashboard. And let's say I want to sign in, little Billy needs to use it right after I do, and I could put that information in. Student one, and put one, and now both logbooks would be open. So whoever signed in or whatever password was put in, both of those can now be viewed. But from the teacher's perspective, oops, I got a capital I there. From the teacher perspective, with this load, it's quite large, so it's going to take a minute. It's pulling up all of the tabs. So I have tabs. I think I had, I don't know, I don't remember. I had the capability of having like 60 students or 55 students in a class max. Not in a class, but in a semester. So I would use this for sections 1, 2, and 3 of a class. Everybody was in here, and I could have all these students. And you could add more to the end if you wanted, but that's just what I needed. Now, from a teacher perspective, this is really nice because I can come in and I can see all these students. I can scroll down and say, okay, well, I know they've started building. Yeah, that looks pretty close. I know they've been to the Woodwork a few times. I know they've taken, I can see their project. They have hinges on it and it's been sprayed with clear coat. Yep, so that's right. And their payments, yep, they've made payments. And right now they still owe me $77. So it's really nice to go through one by one. But also there is a tab that says all students totals. And I can come here for a quick glance and say, okay, student one owes 77, student two owes 1362, the student three owes 185. And I can see, well, they've already paid $100. So they need to pay 77 more. I had some breakouts of solid lumber, sheet goods, and other supplies, how much they've spent in each of those, and maybe some that board foot oak carried over to that area. So this is really nice. At the end of the semester, if my budget's coming down, I can say, okay, well, I know I'm going to have another $300 coming in. So I can go ahead and maybe purchase a new router bit that broke, or know that because I know I have some material coming in. And the reason this all stemmed was because I did not have a local supplier of hardware or wood that was for the hardwood specifically. They could go to the lumberyard, Menards, Lowe's, Home Depot, and purchase some of this, but we as the school could buy it at wholesale prices in bulk, and then I could get the students a much cheaper price, and it was in town, right? We only had one of those hardware stores in town, and so they only really had one option to go to for supplies. So this way, they were purchasing it through the school. The school just simply was kind of the middleman. I really didn't mark it up. The only thing I really marked up for was covering the cost of delivery. So it was like a board foot of wood. I bumped up, instead of being like 255, I made it 260, just so that by the time that unit was spent, it was covering the delivery cost. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at some more of these. Like, where do these drop down menus come from, right? I've got these drop down menus in here. And where do the prices and all that get set? Well, I have a little tab here that I had hidden, and that's right here, this little period one. I wanted to still be able to find it, but it's not. If somebody got into my logbook, it's not as obvious. So that period is where I have kind of all my background stuff. So that list in there. So if I said location found and I wanted to say from a tree, Now, when that student goes in there to choose their location found, they will have from a tree in that drop-down menu. Okay, so it's pretty simple once you've got your list set up to come in here and change and move some of these around. Okay, you can see I have some borders around this because then that way I know how many cells are in that in my list. So if I want to add more things, like if I wanted to add tree branch, it's not going to show up on my list of types of material because of my list isn't that long. It's not developed that long. And so if I want to change some of these things, it's pretty easy to change the list that's already there. But if I want to, oops, hit end. If I want to change how long this row is, then I have to do some work up in here, and I'll come back and talk about that in a little bit about creating your lists within this. But I wanted to kind of show you where my lists are pulling from and where my size is. So I've got the price right next to things, and so if this time I order in a box of hinges and they've gone up to $275, I can click it here. And now it's gonna, the bad thing with that is it's gonna update everybody. So everybody who had hinges at the 250 price, it's now gonna be bumped up to 275. Or I could put another line in here, new hinges, or something like that, and then put a different price if it was dramatically different or things like that. But I've got quite a few different rows out here for lists because there's several drop-down lists. If this one's picked, then it's going to pick a different drop-down menu choice and so forth. So that's why there's quite a few of them there. Again, this really helped me in looking through students' logbooks, because instead of spending hours calculating their board feet, that was already all done here. All I had to do is, okay, yeah, little Johnny looks like his project, 2-3 boards probably covered it from the wood rack. I know that they took 1 sheet of plywood or 3 sheets of plywood. It was very easy to come and glance and see, oh, have they paid anything yet? Yep, they have, and so forth. Unfortunately, in my school, the office was in a different building, so I had to collect the money. And so when I collected money, I would put it right in here and write that down. If you have a secretary that is in the same building or really close, I would have them write a receipt, and then you take that receipt and enter it in. And then maybe instead of being check number, this is a receipt number. And so you can track that a little bit better. I would avoid at all costs, if possible, to avoid handling any money if you're taking that in for student projects. So hopefully that's kind of helpful in kind of seeing what I did in the wood shop. And, this was many hours of work outside of the classroom for me to develop and to find resources. But I'm willing to share this with you if you want to modify it or work with it and make your life hopefully a little bit easier.